Hi, everybody. Welcome to Spill the Tea with Bougie Miles. Today, I am joined by one of my very good friends. I guess we might be very good friends, except that we've never met in person. So this is my friend Joe from asthejoeflies. He is As the Joe Flies. Saverocity, his newsletter, which is tiny. Go ahead, Joe. Fill me in.
letter.com/asthejoeflies. You had it.
Thank you. Okay, so where can everybody find you, and what do you spend your time doing in the miles and points world?
So I do a lot of podcasts. You can find me at asthejoeflies on social media, but you may know me from the Observation Deck, which has been going on for like 5 years at this point. Miles to Memories podcast with Sean and Bethany's best friend, Mark. Or if you are a Disney fan, you might know me from Disney Deciphered, which is not really miles and points related. It's just more like general Disney planning for people, before a pandemic happened.
Yeah. So about that. Yes. So Joe and I are friends through the Miles to Memories people. And funny story, I actually started listening to podcasts because I was looking for a way to consume miles and points stuff without reading because, multitasking, right? And that's actually when I started listening to Joe. So when he had me on the podcast, it was like a rite of passage. Like I was more nervous about that than I was about anything else. So yeah.
One of the best reviewed shows ever, for the record. So, I took too long to have you on.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. You're not the first person who said that either. Anyway, hi, Trevor.
I believe it.
Love Trevor. Trevor I've met in person, and he is funny. The last time we hung out, he had me, and I think his name is Mike. I know he's like a big MS explainer. Do you know who I'm talking about? Mike something?
Graz?
Yeah, you know what? That might be it. Yeah. It was definitely something Italian. He had us cracking up about a story about, I don't know, some kind of champagne. We were at like an after party at FTU. And yeah, it was a good time.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, right. And so
I'm like going crazy, by the way, because I don't normally wear these glasses, but my others were bothering me. I've only started doing video stuff on Miles to Memories recently, and the glare on these glasses are off the chain. My other glasses are better, so I'll have to remember that for next time. Sorry.
Listen.
You can see when I'm switching to the soccer game. You can see it in my glasses.
That's how interesting I am. But no, let me explain something to you. My eyebrows, which hopefully you can't see because of your glasses, are so messed up because I haven't been to like a brow bar in I don't even know how long. Like one of them is higher than the other. This one's higher. I haven't been I cut my own hair last month. Like, don't worry about your glasses. There's
so do my
other things here to worry about.
My 2-year-old. First of all, I could take off my glasses and then I would not be able to see her expressions at all, and so everybody would win. But secondly, my 2-year-old decided to give herself a haircut in the quarantine, and she gave herself bangs.
Yes.
And at first we were like, "Oh, this is terrible," but then we realized like she's pulling it off, so she knew better than us. And so now they're like getting long, and we're like, "Oh, should we just like trim up her bangs?" Because she knew what she was doing apparently.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I feel like almost every 2 or 3-year-old at some point ends up with like a pair of scissors under a table. Like I remember when my little sister did it, and my mom is a hairdresser. So it was like somebody died.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, we're 3 for 3. We're 3 for 3.
Yeah. So,
this is the only one who's done it multiple times. This last child is the one who's done it multiple times. So
wait, so she's 2. So how many times has she gotten a hold of these scissors?
She's done it twice, and I do not appreciate the judgment I hear in your voice about my parenting right now. So
there is none whatsoever. Oh my God. We have a foster dog right now who is like the equivalent of a 2-year-old, except like his entire life revolves around trying to get food. So like the other day, and he's like 30 pounds, but a big 30 pounds, So the other day I turn around and he's knocking everything off the breakfast bar. He's going from the breakfast bar to the top of the countertop in the kitchen, knocking everything over. I was like crying because like when you don't know what to do, but like he's it's so cute what he's doing, but at the same time, it's like I'm gonna spend 2 hours cleaning this up now, and we've learned nothing here. so, so there
Our
is.
dog, yeah, our dog still does that. Yeah. So again, the 2-year-old, she had like a slice of prosciutto, and you know how like if you get like prosciutto from Costco or something, it has like the individual plastic pieces between the slices. And so we gave it to her with that, and I guess she put it at dog level and left, or she fed it to the dog. Who knows? But it disappeared, and my wife was like, "Did Ruby, our dog's name?" She's like, "Did Ruby eat like the whole thing, including the plastic?" And I was like, "Well, we'll find out in a couple of days." And sure enough, we did. So,
It was everything, the whole.
yeah, yeah. So the plastic came out as like a whole, you know. But I mean, she was a rescue, and the first
Yeah, you know
week,
what? I wasn't sure, to be honest. And so I never wanted to ask, because usually when I ask that question, if the answer is not as I like, I tend to like the person less. And I really like you. So I didn't want to ask, but that's amazing. Okay.
yeah,
Awesome.
no, she's a rescue. She's a rescue from Arkansas. Like we're not even sure what we know. She's part lab, and our best guess is that she's half Vizsla, but we're not sure. It's like a hunting dog. But anyway, so the first week we had her, okay, we got this like little rubber ducky toy for her, and she was squeaking it and stuff like that. And this is the first week we had her, and then one day we're just like, "Where's the rubber ducky toy?" This is like our first week getting to know Ruby, and then a couple days later, sure enough, this duck foot came out, and that's when we learned that she can pass anything. Like I'm
Yep.
never worried about what she eats. I mean, she has actually no. She used to swallow socks whole.
I was just going to say, the only thing you have to worry about is socks.
Those she always manages to get out through the front. But everything else goes all the way through. I just don't understand. I thought I had a pretty decent understanding of biology, but I just don't understand how that stuff gets all the way through the system intact.
Thank God. I mean, it's amazing. I've actually never had a dog who does that. Thank God. Because
Yeah.
I would be like, I would be worried about it. I'm like a tiger mom when it comes to the pets,
Yeah. Yeah.
So it would be bad. Yeah.
Well, we used to worry about it all the time.
Yeah.
But then now, so she had never eaten prosciutto plastic or whatever you want to call that, right? Like deli meat, like individual, like slice separators or whatever. But when she ate it, I was like, oh, I'm not worried. Like, she's passed way worse stuff than this. So if this is the thing that gets her, it'd be a surprise.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So, talking about dogs eating things. I don't really know how to.
Very on brand, very on topic.
That's why I like to edit. It's like one of those things. Like I could be like on the whole time, but that would take so much more like work and adrenaline, and sometimes you just like it'll take me 20 minutes after the fact. So anyway. Okay, so actually talking about your dog and rescuing is a really good transition into the little friendly wager that we're going to make this week. I don't even know what do we call this? It's a donation made on a bet. I'm not sure. So here's what I'm going to do. You're going to tell me who you think is going to win the PGA championship. Is that what the thing is called this week? You're going to tell me who's going to win the golf tournament.
You are right, by the way.
Thank you. I am obviously, as always, putting my money on Tiger Woods. I already have money on Tiger Woods, obviously. And then, of course, I badgered my player 2 the other night into, he ended up not doing it, but I gave him a whole lecture about why he made the wrong bets and why he should have bet Xander Schauffele instead. And guess who's leading? Yeah, so he's going to die if Xander wins. But, okay, so my money's on Tiger. Yours is on who?
So my question was, first of all, this is how I know you're degenerate. You don't even know the name of the tournament. But anyway, my question is, so I'm going to pick a golfer, and then obviously odds are neither will win. But between us, the winner is whoever places higher, correct? Yeah, but I also need to know for bragging rights,
Oh, of course.
We're whoever places higher wins the bet, right?
Yeah, I guess.
I mean,
I
because
feel
we know the odds are we pick two golfers. The odds are they're not gonna, neither is gonna win. But I would.
right. Yeah,
So,
yeah. You're
so,
correct. Odds are.
so I'm gonna go with Tony Finau. He is an American golfer. He's had some success. Um, you know, I think he has won something
Recently.
before. And also, since day one is over, I know you probably made your Tiger bet before day one, but I looked at the leaderboard who was like in the top 4 or 5 or so,
Mhm.
and he was there. And out of all the people, like Jason Day is high up there, but I'm not a big Jason Day fan.
You're
Uh,
not? Why? He's my number two. Like
I
when Tiger's
mean,
out, he's my guy.
I mean, I I don't know. I don't know my golfers that well, but I feel like he was a jerk at some point, but maybe he wasn't. I don't know.
No.
I'm not a golf guy. Anyway,
So the reason Jason Day
I
is
went
my
with the American, not the Australian. Anyway, I know Jason Day is Australian. I know that at least.
yes, yes, he definitely has an accent. The reason he's my number two is because Tiger's like one of his last tournaments before he like left for a while, he was paired with Jason and Tiger was feeling like a little like woozy and Jason was so nice to him that like it made me love him. And so now he's my number two, like for no reason other than that. But then he ended up winning like a few tournaments later. And so it was almost like for me, the Giants are questionable in my mind because of how they treated Eli. And I'm having a hard time like loving them like I used to. So I'm like trying to see if it's possible for me to pick another football team. And so far I haven't been able to like get excited about anybody. So I'm not really sure what the, you know, state is of that, but it's kind of the same thing. So all right.
Even as a non-Giants fan, they did Eli dirty. You're right about that.
2 years in a row. Like this guy
Yeah.
gave us, at least for me, like sports is my thing, right? So like, well, I have a lot of things, obviously, as you know, from being my friend. But sports is the thing that gets me like most excited, you know? And the two best days of my life were, well, now I have three because of the Masters, but the two best days of my life were both Super Bowl wins. And like, if you're a diehard Giants fan, it's probably the same for you. I mean, you're not gonna like say it because your wife would probably kill you, right? But like when you're talking to your friends and like those are the best days of your life. Like how many football fans actually get a Super Bowl? So few, you know? And
Not me. Not me.
what are you, Jets?
Yeah, it's so sad. Just let's move
Jets?
on.
Yes.
Yeah, Jets. Yes.
I feel so bad for you
Terrible.
guys.
And
Yeah.
and
My PTU is
well,
Jets too.
and don't forget where I live, right? So it's just all Patriots winning championships all the time here. Me as a sad Jets fan just crying in the corner. I stopped watching the Super Bowl when the Patriots are in it. I think
Aw.
the last Giants win is one of the last ones I saw, but like ever since the Patriots came back against Atlanta, I'm like, I just can't do this to myself anymore. I'm too old. I don't like spiraling for like
Mhm.
3 days after the Patriots win the Super Bowl. And so I'm just moving on.
You know how I fixed that though? I started putting big money on the Patriots to win.
Well, I do that. I mean, like, I can't do it with the Patriots, but that's a general gambling rule I have. Like, I cannot bet if I bet on a game where I care about the outcome, like I'm
Mhm.
personally invested, like it's my team, then I bet the other way. So
Oh,
that,
interesting.
yeah, I can't bet on my team. It's like it adds financial insult to injury when my team actually loses. And being a Jets fan and also a Mets fan, I'm always used to them losing. So I bet against the team that I want to win if it's my team.
Mhm.
And once they inevitably disappoint me and lose the game, at least I make some money off of it. So you
Yeah,
know,
that's sort of the thinking, right? Like it's like a win loss, but at least it's not a total loss.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
it's good insurance.
people who root for teams that win don't understand. They just don't understand. But this is
Well,
what works for losers.
I've seen it firsthand because I mean, so I grew up in a Yankee family, and like I didn't know any better, like that I was always going to be a front runner. But I actually picked the Giants when I got into football because they were exciting to watch. Because like I just naturally gravitated toward them. I think because I'm a Yankee fan and I'm used to like winning. But yeah, my P2 is like Mets Jets, and I've seen the pain. It's legitimate pain. So I feel for you guys more than anything. Also,
I mean, my wife legitimately just no longer roots for the Patriots because she's like, it's just not worth.
aw,
It's like she doesn't really care, right? And
right.
it's like it's not worth triggering this baby over here being happy about a Patriots win. Like she's like, I don't really care. This dude's a baby, so I'm just gonna be agnostic in terms of sports.
Oh my God, wait. So does your wife like other sports?
Yeah, I mean, basketball is our favorite sport, and
Oh,
I don't hate the Celtics like I do
okay.
the Patriots and stuff like that. So, she, that's fine. And it's really out of the teams here. I mean, I don't like the Red Sox or anything, but I can stomach it because, it's really only the Patriots that provide me personal anguish and pain. So, yeah.
I feel like you and like half the world. I mean, half of the football watching
Yes,
world.
but they don't live here. It's
That's
just
really true. Yeah.
so painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have like, so I have one friend who I'm hoping doesn't watch this. She's a Patriots fan. I think she's watched like two football games her entire life. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
These are the worst Patriots fans.
Exactly. Exactly. It's the people who who only like, go crazy like, "Oh, that's my team. Tom's the man." Like when they win. And I'm like, "Have you ever actually watched like a full football game though? Like I don't need to hear you chirping in my ear about your team winning when like you didn't even name one other player. Give me one." Those people are there.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Actually, in Boston, I mean, honestly, Boston fandom, the hardcore fandom is like pretty serious.
Yeah.
And so there's a term for people like that, which is the pink hats, which like the
I love
Red Sox, there are a lot of like they made pink hats. And so I guess this is where the term originated, but it applies to all sports, and doesn't only apply to women. Like it's just any fair weather fan is like a pink hat these days.
it doesn't only apply to women, I'm sure, but it kind of like 95% of the time does.
Well, the thing is, women here do know their sports really well. So, I mean, I gotta say, like, even though everyone here is my mortal enemy when it comes to
Right.
talking about sports, like most people do know what they're talking about. So,
Yeah.
you got to give credit where credit's due.
Yeah. Well, it's also easier when you grow up like in a winning culture, Like, you want to it's easier to follow, like more interesting. Yeah, and I'm not like crapping on women at all. It's just that women tend to watch men's sports because that's mostly what's televised. So like it's harder to get into women's sports, and a lot of people can't really enjoy what they can't like relate to.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, my poor daughter, she's 7 and she knows I'm really into sports, and I guess she still thinks I'm cool, so she's like into
eh,
sports as well. And so I guess I decided when these kids were born that I'm not going to tell them not to root for the Patriots or any of the Boston teams. Like they can root for whoever they want to, but I think they, just like my wife, I think they have sensed the angst when the Patriots are winning. So, I wouldn't say that my daughter's a Jets fan, but she doesn't root for the Patriots. Like she's like, oh, when they lose, Dad's happier. So I'm fine with her losing. But I was like, but then I was thinking to myself, I was like, have I condemned this girl to a lifetime of misery, right? Because
Good question.
she's like me and she roots for losers. But thankfully, on the women's sports thing, thankfully the U.S. women are so good at soccer, and soccer is like one of her favorite sports. So we watch like whenever the U.S. women are on, we would watch that. I took her to the World Cup, the Women's World Cup in France last year, and we went to this. We went to. I don't know if you bet the spread on this game, but when the U.S. beat Thailand
I don't
13-0,
know. Yeah.
well, it's gambling. So,
You're right.
um, but they beat Thailand 13-0, and you probably don't watch soccer because there's lots of
Huge.
0-0 games, right? And so
Wow.
it's 13-0. And we were at that game, and I was like, hey, kid, you're never going to see this ever again for the rest of your life.
Oh,
So
yeah.
don't get used to it. Yeah. So, but luckily, she at least has one team to root for that is
Yeah.
a winner. So I feel like I haven't condemned her to misery, So thank goodness for the US women being good at stuff.
Thank God. So, the sport that I always point girls' parents to is gymnastics, because the U.S. gymnastics team is so good. Every 4 years, they bring it home, and like, it's a nice thing to see like the whole world rooting for a bunch of women as opposed to like what we root for every day. So yeah, that's a good one too. And yeah, soccer. Soccer I just can't get into. Like a lot of us. But I've tried it. It's just never gonna happen.
It's a niche sport. I understand.
Yeah, it is. Which is
It's
funny.
really hard. It's
Only
really hard to gamble on too, honestly. I've tried.
well, because like,
Uh,
what are you even like rooting for? You know what I mean? Like,
Also, yeah, so like I mean, like if you think of a basketball spread, like it makes a lot more sense. And it's more akin to like hockey, because like in hockey, you might have a spread of like minus zero point 0.5 or minus 1.5, you know.
yeah,
So like when you think about it, it's like more like hockey, but it's easier to bet things like over unders,
right.
and things like
Yeah,
that.
three,
Um,
three is so exciting.
yeah. So, the nice thing though, if you're in Vegas with soccer is like it's over in 2 hours. I mean, like the nice thing with soccer in general is like, you're over in 2 hours. So, when it's going to be over, and then you can kind of move on with your life. I don't know, when I'm in Vegas, generally these days, I like will drop 3 bets down on games and then just go gamble more because I'm not in Vegas enough. So I just got to get it all out. And then I just come back at the end. But if I've been losing a lot, then I'll just sit there and watch the game so I don't lose any more money while I'm waiting.
Yeah, maybe you win a little. All right. So speaking of Vegas, oh, you know what? We didn't finish the so Tony Finau, Tiger Woods. If either one of them win, I make a bet to charity. It's East Coast Canine Rescue. That is where my foster is from. I went to go pick up the foster dog I think it's been like 2 weeks now. I went to go pick him up, and the woman who she's like one of the founders was actually the transport driver as well. And she had like 30 dogs in crates, like with arranged fosters, like ready to go. They saved so many dogs. They have 500 active adoption applications right now. And this is like a little rescue. So what these people are doing is amazing. And if you ever want to like foster or look into it, just let me know. So either way, they are going to make some money, and well, hopefully. And I mean, either way, I'm always like donating. So yeah, that's what we're doing. Okay, now talking about Vegas. What's your favorite Vegas casino? And more importantly, what's your favorite meal?
My favorite Vegas casino. Man, that's tough to say. Like in terms of staying, I've been partial to the Venetian and the Palazzo recently, just because it's solely because I had, I still have, but those IHG reward nights used to be able to be redeemed there. And so, I don't play a lot, and I generally don't play a lot in whatever casino I'm staying in anyway. So, I'm not getting comps or anything like that. So when it comes to like where I'm going to stay, it's like, where can I get the cheapest, or, and then, my friends and I mean, I'm turning 40 this year. We're like too old to like share beds. Yeah. We're too old to like share beds and sleep on the floor and crap like we did in our 20s. So, when you are in the Palazzo, I could use my IHG reward night. It's a suite, so there's a couple beds, there's a couch, maybe 2 couches. So, we can like at least have each have and I like the decor in there. In general, like I used to do, or back in the day, like especially in the 2000s, I did a lot of my gambling in the Mirage just because I really liked their poker room there.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, this was in the 2000s. So like I would have played at like Bellagio or Caesars or something like that, but their poker room limits were like just too rich for my blood at the time. And so, I got used to playing there a lot, but really I'll just play anywhere. And these days, like I don't get to Vegas enough. I mean, one of the things I enjoy most about Vegas, like I like to play, but since I'm there so rarely, I like to play like in as many places as I can.
Okay. Yeah. So you're not like going status.
Yeah. Because I'm not going for status. Although after talking to you, like I'm thinking about, maybe spending more time in Cosmo. But but still, like what I love about Vegas is just all the glitz and all the glam, but also like that it's all different. Right. So it's kind of fun to like sample everything. And so going along with that, I guess the favorite meal I ever had was at Carnivino, but that's closed now, which was like a really great steakhouse.
Was that a
I think it
Holly?
I think it was, yeah. I think it closed before he got canceled, just for the record. But
really? I didn't know that.
I think it was closed before that.
Okay.
I think it was closed a couple of years ago. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention because I haven't been back to Vegas for a while. But besides that, I've always loved buffets. And I think the Wynn was like one of my favorites. I'm not sure if or when they will ever come back. But like, anything that has crab legs was always like pretty serious for me. I mean, like, because even when I was a kid, we would go to these like Chinese buffets in New Jersey, and they would have the snow crab legs, and we would like go nuts. Like we wouldn't get any of the food. We would just like get like pounds of crab legs. Like this is when we were in high school, like my buddies and I. And we had it down to like a science. Like we could make Asian sauces. We could ask them for butter for like the Western sauce, and and so any Vegas buffet that had king crab legs, like so Wynn was the best. But back in the 2000s, like Bellagio was the best. But it kind of rotated. But Wynn, I think, is the best like right now, at least that I've been recently. But RIP buffets. And even even before a pandemic happened, I was very well aware of how nasty buffets can be conceptually. But I think you know from our discussions on Slack and stuff like that that I have no standards when it comes to food
Yep,
or food cleanliness. So,
same.
you know, yeah. So it's all good for me.
I think that's an excellent answer. I've never been to the Wynn buffet. Uh, okay, so my thing with buffets is that like I'm like you, so you said in high school, but I used to go to like Chinese buffets when I was a kid because Jewish people and Asian people, well, Chinese people, I think, tend to grow up like kind of similarly. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think Jewish people and Chinese people know this, and we just don't talk about it a lot.
yeah. So like,
So
we would
yeah,
go to the buffet, right? And my grandma would be like, "Don't fill up on bread." Like,
yeah, it's a
you have
waste.
to,
It's a,
right?
yeah, yeah. Like I mean, if you're at an American buffet, you don't get bread. If you're at a Chinese buffet, like don't get too much rice. Like that's a
Yeah.
waste.
Or
Yeah,
the
and
Chinese donuts. I used to grab the donuts. Basically, it's just like a Zeppeli with like regular sugar instead of powdered sugar, right? And I would like take those first. And my grandma would be like, put those back. Go get like crab legs and whatever that steak is.
yeah, you have to get the food items. This is because our parents did not understand, our families did not understand sunk costs, right? You
Yeah,
have to get the food items that are bring back the highest value, even though it does not change how much you pay. So like,
right.
I have to remind myself of these things these days
Oh yeah.
because, I mean, I grew up like eating as much as possible at a buffet, but these days let's just say my metabolism is just not the same as it used to be. So, although crab legs, it's pretty safe except for the cholesterol, but
Yeah, yeah.
you're not going to get fat on crab legs.
Yeah, you might get gout, apparently. That's like something I've heard you.
Don't ruin these things for me, Bethany. If buffets ever come back,
Oh, I hope they do. I mean, yeah, like also, don't you think it was kind of weird how they said you can't get COVID from food, but you can get it from like somebody standing next to you and like, so what would be the difference if they coughed on my food?
I mean, I really think, well, from what I read, like it won't like stay on the food, if that makes sense.
But apparently it stays everywhere else. So what is the difference?
So like I read about this because I was just like, concerned about takeout and stuff like
Mm,
that. And so it's like it has something to do with the fact that like this is why with masks, you really like this is why you cover your nose, right? Because like if you ingest it, and like logically it kind of makes some sense. Like if you ingest the germs, they go straight to your stomach,
yeah.
right? And they don't get into your respiratory tract. But when you breathe it in, that gets in your respiratory tract. And then so the majority of infection goes through your lungs, right? Well, you're not ingesting food into your lungs, you're ingesting it to your stomach. So that kind of take care of most of it. I do like now, obviously, maybe 3 months ago, I was like, oh, buffets should never come back. But now if you think about it, like from what we know now more, right? Like since it's more airborne, right? Then a buffet is really only it's as safe as you can limit the airborneness of stuff, which any indoor eating is going to be the same. However,
Yeah.
um, in terms of not impressions, yeah, in terms of like the what's that called? Not impressions, but like the
Contact, like I'm thinking like people are,
no, just like the way people think about things. Like when people think
oh,
about buffets, they're gonna think, it's a
perception. Perception
perception. Thank
is
you.
reality. Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. So I do think buffets are gonna, have trouble with perception. I mean, actually, I was listening to this podcast yesterday, and it was a Royal Caribbean podcast. So obviously, it's like biased, but
Are
they
you
were.
nuts? Why are you
Hmm?
listening to a Royal Caribbean podcast?
I subscribed to it like a long time ago, and I never listened to it. But the title was "Is the CDC treating cruises unfairly?" Which obviously, like, they're going to be biased. Although they didn't say that cruises should start, like,
Mhm.
but they made some good points, which was that like cruises are, you know, closed right now. And the CDC is like in control of them, and like you cannot open, but they have not done the same thing to airlines or hotels. And so they rephrased it. It's not that if the CDC is treating them unfairly, but is there like a bit of a double standard there,
Mm.
which, you know, um, I can see the argument, right? Because yes, planes are necessary in terms of like if there's business travel and stuff like that. But you know that a lot of leisure travelers are cramming into planes right now. And because
Mhm.
there are less planes flying, some planes are still like very full,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And like, another interesting argument they brought up is that like if someone gets sick on a plane, American Airlines doesn't have to pay to fly them home via charter, right? But right now, the CDC rules say that cruises, if someone gets sick on your cruise, you need to get a charter plane to like fly them home. So they're saying that, but I think the reason why I bring this up is because I think it's interesting because it is perception is reality, right? Even if, no matter what, like cruises are always going to get worse scrutiny because you just have this perception that they are floating petri dishes. I have this, I enjoy cruising, but I still have this perception that they're like floating petri dishes no matter what. Whereas like, a plane could be a flying petri dish, but it just doesn't have that perception, or it's not as negative a perception. So, in the same way, like, I think it's going to take forever for cruises to come back, regardless of what the science says. I think buffets, which is originally what we're talking about, same idea, right? Like, and of course, there's always the ultimate thing, which is even if buffets do reopen, will people even go because of perception, right? Like, so even if people say even if like they're allowed to open it, it's said it's safe, like, will people even go? So, Disney used to have like a lot of buffets and they're all closed right now. If they're open, they're like, they're a buffet in the sense you can eat everything you want, but you just order off a menu and then they just bring it to you, which I guess I prefer because people are bringing me my food. But, and I wonder if Vegas will go to a similar model where like it's a buffet and that it's all you can eat, but you just tell them what you want. It's not like you go up and get it yourself.
I think that takes something away from it, but I think that's like a definite possibility. And it almost maybe like a good alternative if that's absolutely necessary.
Yeah, because it's because of perception. And I should mention that just because we can't get COVID-19 from people sneezing on our food doesn't mean we can't get other stuff. I don't know. Like, that's why like I'm still not comfortable eating inside in restaurants, whether I would be equally as comfortable eating in a normal restaurant as I would be in a buffet right now. But I'm not comfortable eating inside anywhere. Like, I just want to eat outside just because from what we know.
So I'm with you. Like, it's not so much about me being like comfortable with the virus as much as it is like me being comfortable wearing a mask. I'm just not like, I'm not trying to invite COVID. So obviously I'm wearing one. But at the same time, it's just such a buzzkill on like all of my joy, Like, I'm one of those people who like, I like really big, deep breaths. I really hate breathing in like the smell of the mask, and oh God, I hate it. Ugh.
Dude, I had the weirdest, like, I'm like pretty, like, I'm not the same with a mask. Like, I'm like, I can deal with it and my kids can deal with it. But like today I had like, this interaction that like I was like, oh, this is totally different because I'm wearing a mask. And I was pushing the 2-year-old with the bangs. I was pushing her in her stroller like I normally do. And like, this is literally the first time this has happened since the pandemic started. But someone said to me, oh, your daughter's so cute, right? Like, this is something that happened all the time pre-pandemic, but like, number one, we walk less. Number two, there's less people out. Number three, like, everyone's wearing masks, so people don't talk to each other as much. Anyway, so someone said that to me, and I smiled back at them.
Yeah.
Right? As I was passing them, right? Because that's what I had always done, right? Like, I generally, some people, when people say that about their kids, they're like, oh, thanks, whatever, but like, I was never that kind of person. I would always just like smile and nod. Like, I was a smile and nod type person. And so I passed this lady, and then I was like, and as I was passing her and her partner or whatever, I was like, oh, shoot, they couldn't see my mask. I mean, they couldn't see my mouth. And so like, as I was passing them, I was like, thank you. Like, I had to say something. And like that, it was just like something that had like never happened. And so it just like kind of fundamentally changes everything. And maybe I smiled with my eyes, but I didn't want to chance it. I wanted to be polite. So I wanted to make sure I said thanks.
And it didn't occur to you, like, it's just a normal reaction. It's like your everyday, and like all of a sudden, like, you've got to now change like what your everything is ingrained to do, right?
Yeah, I used to be like very, like I said, I don't like talking to strangers. So I used to be very, I would just like smile or whatever. So now I've like gotten to like, I'm like much more serious about the nod. If people say something to me. But anyway, it's just funny how these things change. So
it's amazing. I'm the same. So I don't like to talk to strangers so much so that like I'll wear my earphones without music. Like, that's
nice.
Standard Bethany. Yeah.
Classic introvert move right there.
Oh yeah.
I do that in the house. It's very useful.
Well, we have a rule in my house that nobody's allowed to talk to me unless like I tell them it's allowed.
So one person, rule for one person.
One person.
Nice.
I mean, I try not to make it sound like terrible to him, but yeah, like, and he'll like, am I allowed to talk to you right now? I'm like, and he'll be like, okay, no.
Nice. You need one of those Brazilian barbecue green. I don't know if you've ever
Oh
been
my God, yes, the green light.
the green and red shaker that you can turn. Like you can put it on green when it's okay for him to talk to you. Yeah.
Well, now I have to like, so we have a new rule. Like, this is post COVID that like I will initiate the first contact.
Nice. Do not speak unless spoken to.
I have ADD, so it's like if you like ruin my train of thought, like
You'll never get it back.
yeah, exactly, and you'll pay for it like later. So now we just have like a routine.
Nice.
um, Funny aside, the green light, red light thing.
Yeah.
So we did that once with my grandparents, and
You mean the actual Brazilian barbecue
yeah,
thing? Yeah.
Brazilian
Okay.
barbecue, yeah. We did it once in Queens with my grandparents, and there happened to be a can of Raid on the table next to us. Like, yeah, like it was a table they weren't using.
New York, man. What are you gonna do?
So, so we see the can of Raid, and everyone like politely, like, kind of declines to eat. And my grandparents are like up in arms, like, because they're paying, and like my family, we're all about value, right? So we go to leave, and we walk out. My mom goes up to the valet, and the guy's got two black eyes and like a hand in his sock.
What?
And it was just like, it was the funniest dining experience I've ever had from
What a
like
rough place.
exactly.
I mean,
It
those
was
cockroaches don't play. Beat that guy up.
yeah. And of course, like, we didn't mean to, but because of the whole debacle, we just couldn't stop laughing at this poor guy. And like, oh God, it was a nightmare. Anyway. So you and I tend to, I think that we share a love for music, because you start, and this was like the most exciting thing ever to me when you told me that you start every episode with like a lyric from a song. So I'm wondering, what's the best concert that you've been to? It could be like recently or ever, and do you think they're ever coming back?
I think they'll come back. Hopefully sooner rather than later, because I know they bring people a lot of joy. I know they bring you a lot of joy. I haven't been to a concert since my 20s just because
Really?
I got too old. Like I listened to too much loud music when I was a kid,
Uh,
and then I had kids of my own, so like, it feels weird to like go headbanging at a concert. I gotta say, so you probably know PNC Bank Art Center in New
of course.
Jersey.
Yep. Been
Um,
there many times.
and so, in high school, I saw definitely Weezer and the Cranberries
Awesome.
together. There was a
Awesome.
third band, which was also like, one of those classic 90s band, which I'm not like recalling, but seeing those two bands together, and I'm a big like Blue Album Weezer fan. Like, I like some of their stuff after that, but like for me, like that was, they peaked at the beginning.
Mm,
And then of course, I mean, I'm a cool emo 90s kid, so I love the Cranberries. So that was a great
of
concert.
course.
But my favorite band ever is the Smashing Pumpkins, and I saw them once in concert at MSG, and so that was a great
Answer.
concert as well.
Wow, that's a
Um,
great answer. Huh.
and I fully credit that concert for destroying my ears and preventing me to watch concerts. I listen to concerts in my 30s because I recall that concert being so loud. Like even in high school, I was like, "Come on, Billy, this is really loud." But it was a
Well,
lot of
that's
fun too.
cool though.
Nah, I mean it was a ton of. I mean, come on, I was like a headbanging 16-year-old kid with like hair like down to here. I mean, it was
You
a dream.
were? Wait,
Oh yeah,
really? I can't
my
imagine. That's
hair
a lot
my
of
hair got to like here. Yeah, yeah. They my
parents have
friends used to. They didn't care, but
okay.
I should have known to cut it because my friends called me Darth Vader, and that was not a compliment. So, I should have known better. But I think we all did things in high school that we should have known
Oh,
better about.
sure. Oh yeah. I had blue hair. Um, yeah, blue hair. I
I
was
think
like
you
the
could still
girl.
pull that off. You could still pull that off.
I totally did, by the way. Like,
Yeah,
it was awesome.
it's not like my helmet head. I think you did pull it off. Yeah, I believe you.
Yeah, just the point is that yeah, when you're in high school, you do ridiculous things.
I'm just glad I
Uh,
never went through a goth phase.
Oh God, did you ever wear like black lipstick or eyeliner?
No, I did not go through a goth phase. So good decisions
Oh,
there on my part. Yeah. Yeah.
oh, so that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't go through a goth phase, but I loved the wide like Jinkos. So like at one point I had like blue hair, Jinkos. I was like the only person who had a nose ring, and I was still on homecoming court.
Nice.
Yeah, because I was so
Yeah.
cool that people were able to look past that.
Do you remember how Doc Martens were like so cool?
Yes. Oh my God. I had a
Yeah.
cousin who used to wear them, and I was like, she's so cool.
Yeah,
With the
my
icon.
parents never would pay for them. I don't know about like they would never pay for them.
Yeah, no,
So I
I
was
didn't have
like,
a pair for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so Joe has
Sorry
like
for all the tangents, by the way.
well, that's what we do. That's the whole idea. That's why,
Yeah,
like, I sent you like like I sent you the stuff knowing we'd only cover like half of it. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
This is
So
a
I didn't
miles
know
and
we were gonna be
points. This is a
prepared.
miles and points show. Sorry about that.
No, it's
That's
not
on me.
getting
That's on
to
me.
know your miles and points people. So there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so you think we should like do the substantive stuff or just go straight to spill? What's it called?
Fifth
Uh,
Amendment.
yeah, plead the fifth. Thank you.
Oh yeah, plead the fifth. Excuse me. Fifth Amendment. What is
Yeah,
the Fifth
no,
Amendment?
well,
I'm
exactly.
gonna
It's
look that up right now.
so.
Fifth Amendment is. This is too long. I can't understand. Oh,
No,
what
it's
is
that
Fifth
you have
Amendment?
the right to plead the fifth, meaning you get to not answer the questions on the grounds that it may incriminate you
Oh,
in a court of law.
thank goodness I've been doing this episode with someone who took the bar.
That's right.
Well,
Do
what
you know
I
what's funny? Oh, the cereal thing with Adnan. You should watch
oh
it.
yeah, yeah.
I'm up
Oh,
to
it was good.
episode 2. Yeah. And one of the women who's doing like she's like a friend of Heyman's is like, I'm pretty sure this was all hearsay. And I'm like, how did that get into the documentary? Like, there's a whole class in law school about hearsay. So for this chick who's just like answering questions about where her friend was, like on the day of this woman's disappearance, like for her to be like, I think it was hearsay. I'm like, okay, whoever made this documentary is
Man,
like pretty dead.
yeah, I don't know if that, like, I don't know if Adnan is innocent or not, but just I feel like with serial and making a murderer and all these things, like I'm just like, we need to fix this criminal system. I don't know if you read, there was an article like a few weeks ago about this guy who was wrongfully imprisoned for like 40 years for a murder that basically one other criminal, the guy who actually did the murder, like he scared a third person into saying that this guy did it.
Jesus.
It's a great article. Actually, you know what? I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil it for you because it's good. So the article starts with talking about how basically the guy who set him up,
Mm-hmm.
it starts with him walking towards him with a shiv in prison in 1970 something,
Oh, geez.
right? Because like this guy's innocent of the murder, and then the guy who set him up is in the same prison with him like 10 years later, and so it starts with him walking with a shiv, and then it goes through the whole article, and then you find out whether at the end of the article you find out whether he ended up shivving the guy or not. So it's a really good story though, and also like just an indictment on. So I don't know if Adnan is innocent or not, but at least the way Serial placed
Yep.
it, like it definitely, it's he definitely does not seem, and obviously I understand that Serial is media, right? So it's
Yeah.
painting a certain story, but I
Sure.
definitely did not come out of Serial thinking beyond a reasonable doubt this dude killed her,
That's
which
the thing. Yeah.
theoretically is supposed to. I mean, from what I was taught in
Yeah.
civics in
Yep.
seventh grade, theoretically he has to be guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So
Yeah. Mhm. So if you like stuff like that, I watched one yesterday and it was actually nice because it was like instant gratification. I think it was called Who Killed Philip Garrett or Who Killed Garrett Phillip. 12-year-old kid ends up dead. Who killed him? It's only 2 episodes, so it's kind of like a movie. And like the whole time I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, like I don't know if this guy did it or not, but I do have an opinion on the fairness of what happened here, you know? And I think that's like the interesting thing about all of these things. We're kind of like, so, well, the really interesting thing to me is that I feel like most of these people who end up in these crappy situations should waive jury trials because you take the emotion out of it if you do that,
hmm.
you know? And it sucks because that's like one of your like rights as a human being to be like, judged by a jury of your peers. But like aren't these the same people who end up wrongfully convicting so many people because of emotion? And judges have a much better chance of not doing that, but aside. So now that we discussed pretty much everything except miles and points, why don't we play Plead the Fifth? And I think we just gave a really good intro to it. So basically,
I don't know what you're going to leave in and leave out, but whatever you all just saw and heard,
I'm
it
gonna
was a
leave that
great
in.
intro. It was a great intro.
I'll leave that in. As
I'm
long
still
as I
not
don't,
used to where my hand goes in the camera when I'm trying to do a hand
yeah.
signal.
Oh, when I'm trying to like figure out like what's in my background and what's not, because my cat loves to bang through that door as she did like while we were, yeah. So I'm always trying to cover that. But anyway, yeah. So I'm gonna leave that in as long as we're not cursing or saying anything we don't want people to hear. I always leave it in. Okay, cool. So Joe, are you ready to play Plead the Fifth?
I am ready. I've mentally prepared a strategy.
Yeah, Joe asked me more questions than anyone else I've ever had on the show, all 10 people.
Look, I like to be prepared for what's coming.
Hey, there
Okay?
is nothing wrong with that.
I don't like being ambushed.
Just made me laugh. Because I was like, do you have anything you want to talk about? He was like, no, but what are you asking me? Okay. So first things first, this is a softball, so don't plead the fifth. So don't plead the fifth on this one. Who is either the best or, yeah, who's the best, like just like best blogger or podcaster or videoer that gives you a run for your money as the best? Like who, or who's your inspiration? Wow, I asked that so terribly, but that's okay.
In miles and points, I assume. Well, first of all, everyone gives me a run for my money if you look at the metrics. So to
be honest, but okay.
But I think the interesting thing is that like I feel like that's something that's always changing from like year to year, and I think that's what I like about not just the miles and points community, but like any miles and points community, or excuse me, any community. Because
I was gonna say, are there others?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we don't tell you about that one, Bethany. So sorry, but that's invite only. But I would say that early on, like always like the big bloggers, like I mean TPG gets like a lot of hate, but early on, like that is who you aspire to be when you start. Like they have a huge site, and then you start understanding the business more, and maybe that's not like the way that the business model is. But the people I respect are the most are the people, I guess, like who are always just like working at it. And you'll find that, or I find that the people who just kept working at it are the ones that are the most successful, which is why, like Sean's successful, Greg, the freaking Mile, is successful. I mean, honestly, that's why TBG and Ben from 1 Mile at a Time are successful, because they just grind it out, and, you can't be successful in the miles and point space without grinding it out. Now, in terms of, who inspires me in terms of like earning miles and points, like I found that these days you will not like, once you get to a certain level, like bloggers no longer, or bloggers, vloggers, podcasters, anyone, they'll no longer inspire you as much as you can be inspired by like the community itself, like the community at large. We started this whole thing talking about betting on golf, and generally in golf, you bet on like 3 golfers or you bet on the field. And in the miles and points community, in terms of like who can you learn from, who can inspire you, who can come up with like ideas that, really stretch you, it's always the field, like all those guys I named, and I didn't name any women. So I should say that, I think Summer has done well. Like honestly, women are underrepresented in the space, and it's messed up. So you rule, Bethany. Thank you for the work that you put out there. But all the men and women who have made it big, the reality is like the field is gonna inspire me more than that, just because there's so many more ideas out there, and the blogosphere, even the vlogosphere and podcast sphere, we kind of all. It's like the thing Adam always talks about, right? Like everyone's hat tipping each other, and it just becomes this like hat tip cycle of death or whatever, like because everyone's talking about the same things. But when you can get into a community, whether it be like a Facebook group or a Slack or a Discord or whatever, like that's where people are gonna be sharing their actual stories of what's going on, and you can learn a lot more from there. So I'd say that, I know this is like kind of a cop-out answer, but really,
I was gonna say, when you're done running for mayor, give me an answer.
I can't, and it's not because everyone is great. Honestly, it's not because everyone is great. It's just because like no one is that great.
Okay.
Not anymore.
That's fair, actually.
Like not anymore, at least. Like no one to me stands out as being like, oh wow, like these people, they really they're really cutting edge. Like no one's cutting edge anymore. Like that's what's so sad about like how the community has become, right? Like no one, if you are cutting edge, you cannot be cutting edge publicly. You know what I mean? Because like if you're because if you're cutting edge publicly, like either it gets killed
Yeah.
or, everyone, and so, like there's no one that's cutting edge anymore. Like really the only thing you can respect about people publicly is that they're grinding it out, which is
Right.
fine. Right. But
Mhm.
it's not inspiring. For someone grinds it out. It's something that you respect, but like, it's not inspiring. But it's the people who don't talk about stuff publicly, the people, like I've seen like this dude who got so many gas points that he rented a freaking gas tanker to get the gas and then sold that gas to like a farm or something. Like those are the stories that are like inspiring, but those
Mhm.
are never the stories that are going to be, written by like a blogger publicly, or like if a blogger did it, they would never say it because, and so, it's kind of sad that the space has become so commercial that we can't like, it's not only because it's commercial, right? It's also like the nature of secrets or whatever. But
Mm.
it's just kind of sad that like the space is, but like no one can do that publicly anymore. And so in that sense, like everyone is fine, but no one is like great. Like no one like really stands out because there is no way to stand out as much anymore, except for maybe I think video is. Which is why you and Dustin and the people trying to wade into video, I'm like that's smart because that is an untapped market. But like in terms of blogs and even podcasts, it's pretty tapped. Like no one's going to do anything fancy and ingenious, and I'm including myself in this, of course.
Right. Well, yeah, but you've never seen Bougie Miles live in person.
Yeah. So obviously, present company is accepted from
Like
everything I just said. Yeah. Actually, I don't know. Like that's not like what like that is not like the craziest idea. Like live shows,
Mhm.
maybe not like live shows, but like like I listen to a lot of like comedy podcasts and like, people grind it out in like comedy clubs and stuff like that. Like, in some senses, like building a person, like I guess YouTube gives you a chance to like build a personality in a
Right.
different way. And like you joke about watching you do stuff live or something like that. But I think there's like, that's an untapped market that in Miles and Points, like in a lot of ways, I think we're behind the rest of the internet.
Yes, I agree.
Like who,
Time. Yep.
like who, like, I mean, are we still like posting on MySpace and Zanga? Like, no, like we don't blog, like, and I mean, this is stuff like I BS about in my newsletter sometimes, just like the whole kind of concept behind, I was talking to Spencer after my latest newsletter, which was like kind of just about like why video makes sense, even though I don't love video and stuff like that. And like, we were saying, like, you can't break in to Miles and Points right now. Just even if it's actually, it's not just Miles and Points. It's just like the internet. You can't break into the internet anymore. Like you can't start a indie podcast and make it big anymore. You have to like have Blue Wire sponsoring you.
Right.
Like you have to be like Michelle Obama, right? Like I can't start a podcast today and compete with Michelle Obama on Spotify, right? Or compete with. I just logged into Apple Podcasts today, and Zach Morris, Mark Paul Gosselaar started a podcast. Like you
He's
can't.
so hot. I love him. Okay.
He's a good looking dude. He's still
Yeah.
like, yeah. I mean, I watched.
Can't get better, I'm telling you.
I can't remember. I think there was a show where he was like a lawyer on TNT or something.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Franklin and Bash.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
I love that show.
Yeah, yes. I watched. I was so sad when they canceled it. But anyway, yeah, I love that dude. But like you can't start an indie podcast and compete with freaking Mark Paul Gosselaar,
No.
right? Like that's always going to be at the top. So it's just weird how the space is, and I don't know, maybe VR is the future. I don't know, but so but that's why I think like it's really tough to pick anyone in Miles and Points who's like really doing it because we're kind of all in the same. I mean, yes, there's big sites and small sites, but like we're kind of all on the same playing field because like if you weren't established 10 years ago or didn't start establishing yourself 10 years ago, it's really hard to establish now, except for maybe video. So subscribe to Bougie Miles. Let's go, people.
That's right. Please, I need subscribers. Yeah, so that's an interesting, really interesting point. And I kind of agree with you in that sense. I think like video is all about like probably personality and like, yeah, because we all know the same stuff. There's like a learning curve, right? Like you know nothing until you know everything. And now it's like, great, you found something, but now what? Like it's not that big of a deal. And then there's a point where you sell out. And I think the people who I love and tend to respect the most are the ones who are right at the point right before they sell out. Because they will eventually.
Yeah.
I mean, I would,
yeah. I mean, you just like people need to, I know it's like, it's so cliche, but like people do need to put food on the table.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I agree that video is like,
but
yeah, I agree. Video is like very personality driven. And I think it's a chance for, just like people go to different blogs based on the voice that they hear in the writing in the same way, like I think video gives a chance to like, and people like think they know writers from how they write, and video is just like another way to connect with people. And let's be honest, like the younger generation, like they don't care to read that much. Although there's something to be said about like when you're outlining how to book an excursionist Brooklyn United, like you need to see that written. But the good YouTubers are going to be able to like make it a slideshow and then like combine it with personality and stuff like that. So it's a great option to have.
Yes.
Podcast is probably the worst for crap like that. You don't want to. Who wants to listen to a podcast with like a notepad writing down what's happening? See, I don't know where to put my hand so you can see it, but I've got the fake. Oh, there's my fake notepad. Like I had to move my hand 4 times before I could get it there. But like you don't want to be.
That's what you were saying, though.
Yeah, but you like that's not something you want. So I mean, that's why on my podcast it's just more about like who we're talking to and the personality. That's why your episode was so great, because your personality really shined through and we just had a lot of fun. So people should check that out. It's episode number 130 something. I don't remember exactly which one, but you can check it out.
Awesome. And also you have to admit something that you've probably never heard covered in the Miles and Points world.
Indeed. Right? Yeah. And so
that's all I try for, just to like give people something new. That's bougie.
Yeah. That's why
aren't.
That's why we talked about buffets in this episode, right? You gotta give people something new. Oh man, if you could use miles and points for Chinese buffets though, oh what a life that would be.
God, I mean, listen, I love buffets, so whatever. They're as bougie as they come. Okay, so next question: who's the worst blogger?
I think what drives me nuts, even though I get it, like anyone who like sells their blog, it just I don't know. I get it, because we all get to this point where like you don't feel like making the grind anymore, and it's your right to cash in on all the hard work that you've done. But like to me, it's just like so sad. Whether I liked you as a blogger or didn't like you as a blogger, it's like it's just so sad when some random people are like writing on your site, and the reason why I went to your site, if I liked you, was to hear your voice.
Yeah.
Right. But then you sell it and I don't hear your voice anymore, or I hear it like once a week or whatever. And like, it's just not gonna be the same. And then obviously you have all these loyal readers, plus SEO and all that crap.
Yeah.
And so, whoever bought your site is going to be doing fine, but it's just sad to like have lost that. But I totally get it. Right. Like, I mean, it's the same reason why people want to retire early, like the FIRE people, right? Like you've worked hard and you want to cash in on that. So I get it from like a financial standpoint, but from like a fan standpoint, as like I can be a fan of people, it just makes me sad. So, the first person I remember doing that was Mile Value. The first person I kind of remember doing that. And I just remember like, 6-7 years ago, like that dude, he freaking like he broke the whole free one-way concept in this world. Like at least he was the first person I read who was like, oh, you could take a round trip flight, but then you can tack on a one-way flight at the end, and like you're basically adding like a free segment, right? Like basically what the United Excursionist perk is now. Like 6-7 years ago, like, that was like the first website where I saw the term free one-way used. Maybe someone else used it, but that's like the site that my friend pointed me to. And I was like, I mean, this dude, like, he did like so much, he just brought so much great information into the community. And then he sold a site, and honestly, the woman who bought a site, she writes fine, and it's fine. But and to be like perfectly honest, like I did not love his personality as a writer, but he had such great information. Like I was always going to his site, but then once it got sold, I mean, number one, I don't read blogs as much more at all, but like, I just gradually over time stopped going to that site. I don't think I've been there for like a year or two. And so, I mean, it's just sad when people sell things, regardless of whether I totally get it, and, if I ever invested in my site and got it big, I probably would end up selling it too, but I would be sad as well as I sold it. It's just one of those things. So I wouldn't say that's the worst, but I'd say that's the worst thing that bloggers do. Like it's the thing that makes me feel the worst, or like makes me not disappointed. Like I'm not like, I mean, that's patronizing, but just, it just like sucks. It just, you kind of wish things could be a
good feeling in your stomach. It's the other kind.
Yeah. It's just like, you kind of wish these things could like stick around. See, wow. It's been so long that Mile Value does not even autofill when I type it in.
I don't think I've ever been there, but I'm almost wondering if they kept it, if she purchased it like for affiliate stuff.
I assume so. I mean, he definitely had like, I mean, that's like, it's not a, like, if you're the purchaser, it's actually very savvy business move.
Oh, for sure.
There's this big Disney podcast that they had like 1,300 episodes and they had a huge following. And then these new guys just like bought it because the guys who had started it like they were just done with it.
Mhm.
And that podcast still gets like tens of thousands of listens, even though if you go to Apple Podcasts, like
Yep.
4 out of every 5 reviews that are post sale are like 1-star reviews.
Right.
Right. So like it used to be a 5-star podcast, but now there are thousands of reviews, and there have been so many bad reviews since the sale that's gone down to a 4-star podcast, which is crazy because there were already like 1,000 reviews before. So like,
Wow. That's
but
crazy.
but like to the people who bought it, number one, they enjoy it, so that's fine. And then number two, like, it doesn't matter. Like they're making bank. So, buying a site that's already established is like a smart move if you have the capital to like buy it. But I mean, it's just sad that the internet is like this.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm hoping that because Google continuously like updates and changes their algorithm, and like obviously we know Google is the driving factor in most things, like for people being seen and everything. I don't know about podcasts, but I know for YouTube.
Well, for podcasts, it's Apple.
Okay.
I mean, now that Spotify's a player,
okay.
Now that Spotify's a player, we'll see. But like for podcasts, it's always been Apple, and they're even more confusing algorithm on iTunes. It's like even more confusing than Google is. Like you
Wow.
can't, how they're like Google courses, like SEO courses.
Yeah.
Like you can't really do an iTunes course because it's so asinine the way the whole. But then now, like the way it works is, people will like when Conan started his podcast, like tens of thousands of people subscribe before he even released an episode. That's why you can't start a podcast these days as like a normal person, and do well at all.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, actually. Okay, so what I find really interesting about this is that I thought for sure that you were going to plead the fifth on the last question, and you didn't. So, do you even want to hear the last question?
Let's go for it. Maybe I won't plead the fifth on anything because I'm an open book.
Okay, well, the third question was, as it always is, shag.
He immediately pleads the fifth. No, go ahead.
Hey, that's fair. It's within the rules. It's shag, marry, kill. So I picked 3 Disney people because you are a Disney guy. And, I don't really understand how that is, but I thought it would be fun to throw a little shade at the other Disney people.
Mhm.
So here's who I picked. Ed Pizza, Summer, AKA Mommy Points, and Dia Adams, because I know that you're probably friends with all of them. Or,
Yeah, I don't know Summer that well, honestly. So I'd have to kill her just because I'm a very emotionally in touch person.
Yeah.
So I can't shag or marry anyone I don't know that well. So sorry, Summer. I know that's a little bit of cop out, but sorry,
No,
Summer.
I don't think so.
Drop me a line and maybe we can change this in the future. But between marriage, I gotta marry Ed Pizza. He's such a nice guy.
Oh, Ed Pizza, I marry him. Yep.
Yeah, I gotta marry that guy. I mean, I'll shag Dia. We can have a one night stand Dia. That's fine. But I mean, Ed, this dude is gonna like feed me donuts for life.
Yep.
Not at the buffet, please, but elsewhere we're gonna get donuts. I seen he just like rented or bought an RV, so we can go traveling. So I think that's how it is. And actually, in reality, I talk to him the most about Disney, and so when we are cuddling in bed at night, we could be whispering to each other about Disney. That's weird on like a million levels, but I'm gonna go with it. So
wait, so I have to tell you, of all my episodes of Plead the Fifth, that was by far my favorite shag, marry, kill answer. Like favorite, absolute. So
I try. So Ed, drop me a line. All right, I'm ready to leave my wife for you.
Yes. And speaking of your wife, we need to get back to her. Well, you do. So please tell everybody where they can find you. And just so everybody knows, every single place that you can find Joe is going to be in the links. There will be a link to everything. So you don't have to remember, but it's always good to hear it again,
Yeah, so you can find me at asthejoeflies on social media everywhere. And so SaverocityObservationDeck.com is my original Miles and Points podcast. Obviously, MTMpodcast.com is the podcast I do with Sean and Mark. And DisneyDeciphered.com is the Disney podcast. I know we didn't talk about it. My short version of why I love Disney as an adult is really I didn't get back into it until I had my kids. So that's my cop-out answer. But I loved it as a kid. Would have gone more as an adult without kids, but my wife was like, no, I'm not a loser. I'm not going to go with you.
It sounds super fun. Also, I love Nordstrom too. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I was like, this is a joke from the Miles to Memories podcast, but she got a Nordstrom credit card and I like lost my mind a little bit. But I was like, hey, I've been hearing that Nordstrom sale's coming on and you haven't told me anything about it. You better be on that. Like you better be on the sale and be buying stuff because like we did not get this Nordstrom card for
She did
nothing.
food alterations too, by the way. Hey,
Yeah.
my player too signed up for a free LASIK credit card we didn't even use. Okay. So
uh,
yours pales in comparison.
you know what? You know why he signed up for that LASIK credit card, right?
No.
Because you did not give him permission to talk to you, so he didn't ask whether he could or not.
You're
And so
crazy.
really, it's on you that he signed up
You're
for
not
that
allowed to
card.
text me either.
Yeah. So
Email.
really, it's the same thing. Like I think she was like, oh, I don't want to bother Joe, and so she came home with the Nordstrom credit card. So it's really our fault.
It's
We
100% out.
blame ourselves. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
but yeah, you can find me all those places. But yeah, I'm on Twitter all the time talking about random crap.
Mhm.
So check
Yes,
me out.
and for everybody who is like just dipping their feet, 100% go back to like not the beginning, but the first like 10 to 40 episodes of Saverocity. Download them and then listen to them when you're like walking your dog or taking long car rides because you'll learn things that even though they may not be applicable now, they like set a foundation. That's what I did, and it definitely helped me strengthen my miles and points muscles. Okay, well, Joe, thank you so much for coming, and well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for being here. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right, so I'll end now. And yeah, and so thank your wife for lending you to me for way
Yeah.
longer than I thought. I'm sorry.